Podcast with Sheila, the podcast that is spreading positivity around the world by sharing inspiring life experiences. With me today is a man who rewrote the rules, a quadriplegic lawyer and father of triplets with an inspiring story to share with us. As usual, we aim to motivate, educate, and inspire you. So grab your warm drinks and let's hit the ball rolling. Hello, Ken, and welcome to Podcast with Sheila.
Hello, Sheila, and thank you for having me as your guest.
It's a total delight. Let's start with the life changing moment. Can you take us back to the day of your injury and what was going through your mind when you realized the severity of what had happened?
Okay, well, it happened on October 31st, 1970. I was playing in a lightweight football game at Cornell University in upstate New York, and I made a tackle in the game against Columbia University. And when I tackled the ball carrier, I broke my neck and severely damaged my spinal cord. So I instantly became paralyzed over virtually all of my body. I now have a little bit of movement in my left arm, but nothing in my fingers or my wrist or on my right side of my body. So I need help with all my activities of daily living.
Wow. Many people would have given up after such a devastating accident. What was it that made you decide to fight, rebuild, and pursue an extraordinary life?
I had an incredibly supportive family and friends, and they encouraged me to go back to school, complete my education, and do something productive with my life. I mean, they kept reassuring me that while I had a physical injury, it did not affect my mind at all. And I needed to make the most of my mind and my intellectual ability. And there was still a lot that I could do with my life.
Wow. So that means that you had a very good support system and that kept you going.
Absolutely. My family's been terrific every step of the way, and I've been so fortunate to have them by my side. They basically assured me, Sheila, that they would act as my arms and legs to make sure I could still do everything I wanted to do.
Great. That's really encouraging to hear. You made history as the first quadriplegic to graduate from Cornell. What were some of the toughest barriers you faced returning to campus, and how did you mentally push through them?
Ugh. When I was injured, it was about 20 years before the Americans with Disabilities Act took effect. So there weren't many facilities that were wheelchair accessible. And Cornell was particularly inaccessible. Cornell is on a very hilly terrain in upstate New York. It's got a very cold climate a good deal of the year with a lot of snow. And virtually every one of its buildings had steps in front of it. So on my first day of classes, I had to be either pulled up or bounced down close to 100 steps just to attend my first day. And just so you know, one of the classes that I took, which met 3 times a week, had 16 steps in front of it. And my dorm room, excuse me, my dorm room was in a building that had 10 steps just to get in. So virtually every single day, I had to be pulled up or bounced down a lot of steps just to get to class. And this was well before the age of laptop computers. So it was very difficult to take notes, or I could not even use my electric wheelchair because the campus was so inaccessible. So I was very fortunate that my fellow classmates and my personal care attendants provided me a lot of assistance that helped me get through school.
Wow. I could see that you have a lot of willpower because people could be telling you you can still do it with all the encouragement and the support. But then I also believe that it depends on the person himself or herself to decide this is actually what I want to do. And no matter what, I'm going to go for it. Was it just the willpower and your family or something else pushed
Well,
you through this?
that's an interesting question. I think I should tell your viewers that I was very motivated before my injury. I mean, you don't go to Cornell, study engineering, which is one of the most difficult majors, and play a sport at the same time and not be very motivated. But I worked very hard to not let my injury prevent me from staying motivated. And fortunately, my family kept pushing me and encouraging me to say there was still a lot I could do. And it got to the point where I felt I'd be letting them down if I didn't do everything I could do to make something out of my life.
Yeah. You are an absolute inspiration to everyone listening to you today. And we have no excuse. We cannot give ourselves any excuse to live below the standard because you've gone on to win multiple awards. You're also a father of triplets. Take us through, how did all this happen? And I know at a point you were an attorney for over 40 years. Talk
Right.
us through
Well,
all of it. Yeah.
okay. Well, I went back to Cornell and I completed my last 2 years of industrial engineering. During the next 2 years, I got hurt at the beginning of my junior year. But when I graduated, industrial engineering really just didn't seem like a viable field for me. As I said, there were no laptop computers back then. So for me to function as an engineer would have been really difficult. So I had a psychology professor that encouraged me to go on for a career in counseling. He felt that there were a lot of people that I could help by just talking to people about my experiences and encouraging them to do more with their lives. So I continued at Cornell and I earned my Master of Arts degree in counseling and student personnel administration. And then to increase my counseling credentials, I went to Columbia University, where I earned my second master's degree. This was in psychological counseling and rehabilitation. And I decided to look for a job in the rehabilitation counseling field. And I guess I was fairly confident that now that I had 2 degrees from Cornell and one from Columbia, 3 prestigious Ivy League degrees, 2 master's degrees, that I shouldn't have too much difficulty securing employment. Well, to my dismay, no one would hire me. This was the middle of the 1970s, and everyone seemed to feel that I was just too disabled to work. I sent out more than 200 resumes and looked for a job for a year. And I was even turned down when I offered to volunteer my services. But finally, I found one organization willing to give me the opportunity to show what I could do. And that organization is on Long Island. It's called Abilities Incorporated, which was part of what was then called the Human Resources Center. It's now called the Viscardi Center after its founder, Dr. Henry Viscardi Jr. And they hired me to work as a vocational rehabilitation counselor for other individuals with disabilities. And I was so fortunate to be hired there. I mean, having that job increased my feelings of self esteem, my feelings of self worth, and my self confidence. In fact, it increased it so much that I later decided that there was still more that I could do. And I left the job after a little more than 2 years and went to Hofstra University School of Law here on Long Island. And I was very fortunate that when I graduated from Hofstra, I was hired to work as a Nassau County Assistant District Attorney, where I worked for more than 40 years.
Wow, your story is so, so, so inspiring. And because I've been communicating with your wife, so I know your wife is your right arm or your assistant. How did you meet your wife? And what is
Well,
that story there?
what happened was, I used to put ads in the newspaper to find a personal care attendant to help me with my everyday needs. And a number of people suggested I put an ad in the Polish Daily News, which is also published here in America, because they said a lot of people look at that newspaper to look for employment. So I put an ad in the Polish Daily News. My wife, who's Polish, happened to be here at the time. She saw the ad, and despite never having done this type of work before, she responded to my ad, and I had the good sense to hire her, and it worked out absolutely great. And not only did she take the best physical care of me that anybody ever did, but our relationship progressed into first a really good friendship and then a romantic relationship that resulted in marriage. And as you indicated, the birth of our triplets. We have 3 incredible sons, Joey, Jimmy, and Timmy. They're now 20 years old, and they're all attending 3 separate colleges in upstate New York.
Well, I have a lot of questions to ask you, and I hope I'll be able to put that across. But then I believe that there is one special person for everybody. And when you meet that person as a soul partner, your life becomes easier and you enjoy life better. And I believe in this case, that is you.
Absolutely. I've been so fortunate. I met the perfect woman for me, the most incredible person I've ever met. And her name is Anna. She's sitting just to my right, right off camera. And Anna has made an incredible difference in my life.
Wow. How does it feel being the father of triplets?
I don't think there's any better feeling in the world to be the father of triplet boys. I mean, they have just changed my life so completely. I mean, they make it such a pleasure to get up every day and just feel as proud as I could be of how well they're doing. And they've grown up to be such fine young men, and they know the importance of helping others and doing the best they can do to make something of their lives.
Wow. I want to believe, and I know that is definitely the case, that you are much inspiration to them as well. And you have risen the bar for them. I always say that my mom was not very educated as I am, as I'm fortunate to be, but my mom raised the bar, even with what she had. She worked so hard, she accomplished a lot. And every time when I look at her, I use her as my yardstick and say, even her was able to do this much. I have no excuse. So, yeah,
I was going to just say, Sheila, that's just another example of how important family is to someone's life. And if you're fortunate enough to be born into a good family that's supportive and encouraging and loving, there's so much you can do with your life.
that's so true. That's so true. Looking back over your 40 years legal career and your awards, which accomplishment means the most to you and why?
Oh, it was definitely being the father of triplets. I mean, with all the schooling I had, with all the work that I had, nothing compares to be married to this incredible woman by my side and being the father of my triplet sons. Without a doubt, those are the most special accomplishments that I am proud of.
Beautiful. In your memoir, I Dream of Things That Never Were. What message do you hope readers, especially those facing adversity, will take away from your story?
Well, that there's an awful lot people can do despite what challenges occur in their lives. I mean, one of the things that I've learned is just because something has not been done before doesn't mean that you cannot do it now. It's so important to challenge yourself, to work hard, to be able to face adversity and overcome it and not be afraid to try something just because it's difficult, and certainly to appreciate what friends and family you have around you. And whenever you get the opportunity to give back to them as well, to try and help others in your life, that makes you feel so much better about yourself as well.
Great. You have received numerous honors and even have awards named after you. When people look at your legacy one day, how would you like to be remembered?
Well, there are a number of ways. One is one of those awards was given by the district attorney's office. It's called the Kenneth J. Kunken Award, and it's the only award they give annually. And it's given to the outstanding assistant district attorney who demonstrates the work ethic, the effect on their colleagues, and the devotion and loyalty to the office as well as the person in the wheelchair. All right. I mean, when people talk about DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, I know there are some that do not have a positive impression of it. Well, I want to tell you, our office does have a very positive impression of it. And I've been told a number of times by the person in our personnel department that when people have left our office, when they spoke to personnel about their experiences, they said one of the best parts of the job was meeting, getting to know, and working with me. And I'm saying that to your audience because I know what my fellow colleagues meant was working and getting to know someone with a significant disability. Because unless they had a close relative with a disability in their family, most people never have the opportunity to come in contact on a daily basis with someone with a disability. And they found that it's helped motivate and inspire them to do more with their lives. So when people, for some reason or another, do not think diversity, equity, and inclusion is a positive element in either education or our workforce, I think they need to ask some of the people in our office about what it has meant to them to work alongside somebody with a disability. And I might add that I was not just in an entry level position. I mean, I was a trial attorney for many years and then was promoted where I was helping supervise more than 25 other assistant district attorneys. So there's an awful lot somebody with a disability can do.
I totally agree with you. I totally definitely agree with you. And sometimes we see the physical disabilities, but so I've heard somebody say before that there are some disabilities that cannot be seen, and those ones are all hidden. So if we look at everybody moving about, everybody has some disability. Everybody in life is working with some disability, but because it is not seen, we don't see ourselves as. So I believe, and I always live by the golden rule that do unto others what you want others to do unto you, and know that everybody has something they're dealing with.
Right. Everybody is facing their own challenges in life. Some challenges are obviously bigger than others, but
Yeah.
to the person experiencing them, they're very real and very difficult to overcome. And it helps a lot to know there are other people by their side that want to help them and encourage them to do more with their lives. And when you talk about invisible disabilities, ones that are not obvious, that doesn't make them any less special or any less strong in the way it affects people. So we've got to realize everybody faces challenges in their lives, but it's how we deal with them that will determine not only how successful we'll be, but also how happy and content we will be in our lives.
Yeah. Totally true. Finally, for anyone listening right now who feels stuck, defeated, or limited by their circumstances, what's the one piece of wisdom you'd want to leave them with today?
Well, I think one, it helps to have role models to look at other people who have faced similar challenges and have risen above them and overcome them. I had the opportunity to write a book about my challenges and my experiences. It's called I Dream of Things That Never Were, the Ken Kunken story. And they could learn more about me and my book by going to my website, which is kenkunken.com.
Great. Great. And I believe your story is a very inspirational story, unless you want to add something to it.
Well, excuse me. Again, I can't emphasize enough how important it is to give back to others, to help others. Again, it makes you feel better about yourself and your lives. And if we all work together to help people, everyone will be better off by it. And I was fortunate to be given the opportunity to do that by the Abilities Incorporated at the Viscardi Center. It's made an enormous difference in my life. And as a result, it's made a big difference in the lives of people that I've worked with, the people I've come in contact with, and eventually the woman that I married, the children that I've helped raise, and my neighbors and friends. It helps everyone.
Wow. I've been so inspired by your story today, Ken. And I believe that everybody who joined us here live or who would have the opportunity to listen to this recorded episode would also have something to take away with them. If for nothing at all, I've taken that nothing should be a hindrance to our rising and being successful. And also, we should live our lives such that we'll be remembered when we are no more. So, thank you very much for being a blessing on this channel today.
Thank you, Sheila.
If you've been listening in, this is season 2, episode 131 of our podcast series, where we bring seasoned guests with inspiring real life stories to share with us. Do not miss out on all these lovely experiences. Subscribe and be notified when a new episode is released. Whilst at it, please drop us a rating. We have an audio presentation of this episode on our podcast landing site. Just search for Podcast with Sheila and you'll find us. Our prayer for you this week is that you become an advocate of peace. Remember, change begins with you. Until we meet again, have a brilliant day.